morning and welcome to the second day of the FINA convention. Today we have another great lineup for you. We will start the day exploring the topic fundraising and financing and fundraising, generating new revenue. This is a very important topic to many of our national federations. Funding is always a challenge, and our speakers will provide us with some great tips and tools to generate revenue. I'm happy to introduce to you our speakers for the panel. Bill King, CEO of International Fundraising Consultancy. Samit Patel, CEO of Drupio.com. And Zhang, Vice President, International Data Group, China. Thank you for joining me on the stage. I'd like to invite Mr. King to the podium to start us off with his presentation.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for inviting me here today. It's a real pleasure to be here. I'm aware that we have a lot to get through and not a lot of time, so I'll get straight on with it. I'm going to start by introducing my company, IFC, a little bit, and then talk about the fundamentals of fundraising. And then I'm going to talk a bit about some examples of how sports people and sports organisations have used the tools of fundraising in order to raise their own funds. So, if this works, yes. We are IFC. We are a full-service fundraising organisation with offices in 13 countries across the world. And we believe that non-governmental, voluntary, non-profit organisations are effective mechanisms for social change. And that's why we do what we do. We believe that through giving our time and our expertise, we can help those organisations to make a better world. And so we work with international aid organisations, hospitals, cultural and arts bodies, anyone who can help meet our mission of making a better, fairer, more fulfilling world for everybody. And we're good at what we do. We win awards. This is just a small selection of the awards we've won in the last few years. So that's a very, very brief introduction to IFC. What I really want to talk about is fundraising. And firstly, I should explain what I mean by fundraising. And essentially, it's any type of voluntary income, anything that isn't generated through your commercial revenues and your commercial activities. It's not an exact definition because corporate sponsorship can also be counted as fundraising, but that's not really what I'm talking about today. What I'm really more interested in is how you get money out of individuals, and I'll talk mostly about that as we go through it. I don't know how many of you here do fundraise. I don't know how many of you here are actually interested in fundraising as a concept, but I think you should be. I think everybody here could fundraise if they wanted to, if they thought that was appropriate. It's not complicated. It's not easy, but it isn't complicated. All you need to be able to fundraise is three things. You need a good story that will engage people and get them behind you. You need a pool of people who will be engaged by that story, and you need a way to get that story in front of the right people. If you can do those three things, then you can fundraise. At the end of the day, there is only really one reason why people give to charitable organisations, and that's because they see a problem in the world that they want to sort out. They want to be the hero of their own story. They want to solve the problems they see. That doesn't have to be in a big way. It can be helping one person in a small way, but it has to be real. They have to believe that their gift will make a real, tangible difference. And that's where telling the story comes in. Fundamentally, that is what we are as fundraisers. We are storytellers. That's what we do. We need to tell a story in a way that's going to engage people in an emotional way and persuade them, firstly, that there's a problem out there, secondly, that you are the right people to solve that problem, and thirdly, that their donation will make a difference. I find it helps to think of it like a fairy tale. And the story I usually use to describe this to people is Little Red Riding Hood. Little Red Riding Hood has the three elements that any good story needs. It has the person in danger, who's Little Red Riding Hood. It has the threat, which is the wolf. And it has the hero, which is the woodsman who comes along, saves the little girl and kills the wolf. Think of your organization in those terms. What is the threat and who are the people in danger? For sports organizations, that could be a number of things. It could be that the people in danger are your elite athletes who don't have the funding they need to compete at the highest levels. It could be it's about the general public, the participation levels, you want to increase those. It could be about health, it could be about social developments. There's all sorts of things you could be looking to. But you need to be able to tell that story. You then need to identify who is going to care about that story. And I would suggest that you probably already know who most of those people are. They are the ones who participate in your sport, who come and watch your sport, who care about your sport. If you can find a way to identify who they are and what they care about, that's the way forward. Then once you've identified the people who are going to care, it's about building the relationship with them. It's about taking them to the point where they like what you do, to they love what you do, and they take a personal, passionate interest in what you do. Sport is all about passion, so it's about making people passionate about it. And it could help to think of it like a romantic relationship. It goes from first getting to know each other, a bit tentative, through to falling in love, and then the donation is that first commitment, the marriage. But after the marriage comes the whole lifelong relationship. So your job is to make sure it is a long-term relationship. It's not just a one-off gift, but they keep giving to you all through their lives. So those are the first two. That's the story and the audience. The third thing is a way to get in front of them. And there's far too many different ways of fundraising to go into all of them today. But I thought I'd talk about a few. And I've broken this section down into two areas. The first is raising funds from the many, and by that I mean lots of small donations. And in a second I'll talk about raising money from the few, which is getting a few big donations from very wealthy people. So in terms of raising money from the many, there's ways of doing that. The first one I put here is use your website. It's a great tool for communication, but does your website say you need funds? Does it tell your story? Does it explain to people the difference that your donation can make? You can then use social media and other aspects of technology to get your message out there, but your website is a key place. Does it allow people to make a donation through your website? As sports bodies, you have an advantage over lots of organizations in that you bring people together. You organize and host events where people come to watch and participate. You could try and get donations out of people on the day. The old-fashioned way of doing that is through collection buckets or tins where people put their loose change in it. These days you can use contactless technology to do the same thing. I've seen great examples of interactive displays, videos where people touch their card to the video and it displays a message. It displays a short thank you message. It's a very, very effective way of raising funds. Or you could run a competition where people enter it, and obviously they do so to win a prize, but also the proceeds will go to your cause. In the UK, where I'm from, the National Lottery is the biggest example of this. It raises millions of pounds each year, and for every ticket that people buy, 20% goes to fund sport. And that's split between elite athletes and grassroots participation, but it's £300 million a year that it's raised. It's a vast sum of money. And I know that your sports bodies, you don't have necessarily the influence to do that. There may well be lotteries already in your country. You can't set something like that up. But you can run your own. On a smaller scale, you could do something similar to raise funds. My own area of speciality, though, is the wealthy people. It's getting those small number of very big gifts which can make a huge difference. And by big gifts, I'm talking tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of pounds or hundreds of thousands of dollars. And raising money from the few is very, very different. Whereas before it's about reaching as many people as you can, here it's about bespoke approaches. It's about very careful targeting. Who do you know who is wealthy, who could give you a lot of money? Who cares about what you do and the issues you're talking about? It's about that networking approach. Not just who do you know, but who do your contacts know? And spreading out from those people to build your networks. I find events are a very good way of doing this. It's much easier to invite someone to an event to find out more about your cause and your organisation than it is to ring someone up and say, hey, can I come and talk to you about making a donation? But if you invite them to an event, you can then sell to them. And people will come to events because they want to meet the people who are there, and it's in a venue they want to go to. If you can get a host who is a well-known celebrity or a well-known sports star to host those sort of events, and you can get them to invite people, then people will come, and you then have the opportunity to talk to them. You can ask them for money on the day, but I prefer not to. I prefer to use those events just as a chance to talk to people, and then you follow up with them afterwards, ask for meetings, and that's where you ask them for money. Slides not working. So that's very, very brief overview of fundraising. In the last 5 minutes, I just want to give a few examples of where organisations and people have used fundraising to work for them. First, there's a few individuals. This is an American. Well, if I got my notes to work, I could tell you his name. There goes. It's a guy called Nick Simmons. He's an 800-meter runner from the US. And he came up with an innovative way of fundraising and supporting his career, in that he ran an auction on eBay for his shoulder. The idea was that people would sponsor his shoulder and put their logo on it, and through that would raise the funds to compete. And it worked. He raised $11,500 and was able to compete in the London Olympics thanks to his fundraising. And this is another American, a guy called Cyrus Hostler. Obviously, he's a javeliner. I don't know what the technical term is. But anyway, he is very active on social media, and he uses his website to engage with his fans and engage with the public, to talk about his career and his progress and actively solicit for donations. And finally, this is a Tongan Winter Olympian whose name I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce, but he changed his name legally to Bruno Bananai. And they are a German underwear manufacturer. And so his idea was, he changed his name to the name of his sponsor, and that helped promote them. The IOC hated it. They said it was incredibly bad taste, and they were adamantly against it. Nevertheless, it worked, and he competed in the 2014 Olympics, Winter Olympics. Organisations too can learn from these techniques and make it work for them. This is the International Association of Ultra Runners. And they are an organisation we have been working with through our Netherlands office. And they came to us because they were looking for help with their marketing and their fundraising. And I can't go into too many details because it's an ongoing process, but we've looked at how they can engage with those people who participate in ultramarathons and ultra running and get them to engage in fundraising, both through running their own events and through donating directly. And this is another organisation, Maccabi Canada. They raise big money. They're currently fundraising for a $25 million endowment, and that is to help people compete in the Maccabi Games, which are held every 4 years in Israel. And so they're raising money both to support the athletes who go to that and to encourage grassroots sport in Canada, particularly aimed at the Jewish community. And they have all sorts of different schemes, one of which is for wealthy people. They can adopt a team or adopt an athlete and help them get to the games. The Paralympics are a great example of how people use a very powerful story to engage people and fundraise. In the UK, where I'm from, we are very proud of our Paralympic athletes. In the last few years, they have gained a great deal of publicity, and they have a real place in our hearts. And they are viewed alongside able-bodied athletes, which is something that is fairly new. They are very upfront about fundraising, and they are very upfront about why they need money. It's all about national pride. It's about helping those Paralympians to compete on a national stage and take on the best in the world. And on their website, that's why the message is supercharge our team. Give us your money and help us do that. And they use the stars, this is Ellie Simmons, who's a multi-award-winning swimmer, to help promote those messages. And it raises a lot of money. Last year, they raised about £300,000 from major donors, and a similar amount from legacies, which are gifts left in people's will. They also raised about £4.5 million from corporate sponsorship. But the Australians are even better at it. They raised about $4 million last year just from donations. And they do it in a number of ways. Major donors, as I said, they promote legacies in the same way. The other thing they do is competition. They have a scratch card, a scratch and win card, which they sell to people on the streets and at their events, and it raises a lot of money for them. These things work very well. So just to sum up, then, anyone can fundraise. It is not complicated. All you need to do is work out your story and find a way to tell it in a way that is going to engage people. Work out who is your audience, who cares about you passionately, who can you convince to make a donation, and ask. Finally, you've got to ask. All the research has said that the main reason why people do not give to organisations is they have never been asked. So please ask. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. King. And now I invite Mr. Patel to the podium for his presentation.
Hello everyone. Thank you to FINA for inviting me down. I am a crowdfunding expert. You probably don't know what crowdfunding is at the moment, but hopefully by the end of this presentation, you'll have a bit of better understanding of what crowdfunding exactly is. So let's get into it. Crowdfunding is the practice of funding a project or venture by raising money from a large number of people who each contribute a relatively small amount, typically via the internet. So you may have seen a lot of examples of crowdfunding already. So this is a great example of Oculus. For those of you that don't know what this is the VR headsets. So every time you go to exhibition, you always see these cool headsets. It's because of this. This was on a platform called Kickstarter and led to the VR revolution. So it raised over $2.5 million, dollars, sorry. This is another really silly example. It's called the Fidget Cube. It raised $6.5 million with about 150,000 backers. And all it was a little cube that you can move around and flip switches, and raised a whole bunch of money. There's a lot of different uses for crowdfunding. You can also do trousers, but the most relevant example is something like this. So this is a really great story of Charlotte Evans and Kelly Gallagher, who went to the Sochi Paralympics in 2014. They earned Great Britain their first gold medal. You've also got really silly examples. This is actually a crowdfunding example of a mum who wanted to take her children to Disney World. And she got a lot of negative feedback because people were like, look, you're using GoFundMe, which is another platform, to raise money, and you're taking away from people who are asking for disability funds or sporting funds. She ended up taking a campaign down, but at the end of it, she put it back up and raised about 7,000. So really, really silly example, but she managed to raise some money. So who am I? What do I do? This was my first project. It was a smartwatch that I did. It's a smartwatch that you can put together like Lego, and each different aspect of it allows you to build your own smartwatch, just like Lego. This project launched on October 13th, 2015. Within 56 minutes, it raised $250,000. At the end of a 30-day campaign, it raised over 1.6 million. Since then, I've helped hundreds of projects in all types of different areas, apps, smart IoT products, helping raise over 30 million in funding. And now I've got my own agency called Jupio. I also do a bunch of training courses and consulting around the world. So you're probably thinking, okay, Samit, you're great at crowdfunding, but how can you help me? How can crowdfunding help me exactly? So for this, we need to understand the different types of platforms. So you've already seen examples of the consumer platforms. These are the ones that most people know. Indiegogo and Kickstarter. This is an exchange of money in return for a service or a product. So what people do is they would put that Oculus headset and ask for advance money, and once the product is live, that's when people would get it. So it's exchanging money in a return for a product or a service. You've also got equity platforms like Seedrs and Crowdcube. This is an exchange of money in return for shares in a company. So the ones that are going to be most relevant to you are personal platforms. So you've got platforms like Crowdfunder, Just Giving, GoFundMe, and YouCaring. For the case of this presentation, we're just going to be looking at GoFundMe and Just Giving. So it's the exchange of money for nothing but charity. So this is how GoFundMe looks like. It's got loads of different projects. There's people asking for money for all types of things. So there's people asking for help to go to the Olympics. There's people asking for money to help provide for funeral services, medical services, all types of different things. Just Giving is exactly the same, just another platform. The two platforms side by side, out of the two platforms, we'd actually recommend GoFundMe. The platforms themselves, there's no difference. Most of your money that you're going to raise is going to come from your community. It's not going to come from the platform. The only reason you look at these two platforms is actually a case of where to put your project on. So GoFundMe charges 0% platform fees. So you could put your project up, and if you didn't raise no money, there'd be no risk to you. So how can you make crowdfunding work for you? You can either do it as an organization. So this is where you get all your members, you get all your corporates, you get anyone that you know to help support your organization. You can do it through something called GoFundMe Team Fundraising. This is where you get all the teams underneath your belt and put together a campaign and go ahead on GoFundMe. So this is how a typical raise would look like. The organization's goal would be about 50,000. You would reach out on social media, do tweets, do Facebooks, go on Instagram, share it across. Maybe that will raise you about $10,000. You can reach out to individual members, get them to help out and raise the awareness. That could raise you another 10,000. You could go to your corporates or your connections that you have, and that can raise you another round of money. The one we recommend is getting the individuals to do it. So it's much more powerful coming from the athletes themselves. So this is an example of someone who has set up a GoFundMe page. She's raised $2,500 just from her friends and family. This is a really good example of something that's coming up. So Cancer Research UK, Marie Claire and Swimathon have all partnered up, and what they're getting ready to do is to do a big campaign in 2019. They've reached out to their community, got their community to set up individual pages. They've structured it so they've provided the story, they provided the banner, and then the individual members would stick up the campaign themselves. So you can see, if you do a little search on GoFundMe or Just Giving, you will see all these campaigns by lots of different people. And it's much more powerful coming from individuals because people are attached to that personal story. This is a really good example. This guy went viral during the Rio Olympics. He was a very oiled up guy, as you can see from the image. He ended up going really viral and caught on to a lot of things. He's actually doing a GoFundMe now. It's quite a funny story, actually. He's from Tonga, and he's now trying to do skiing. And obviously in Tonga there's no slopes, so he's raised nearly 28,000 just on the back end of how successful he got. So this is how the members can help you raise money. So if you've got a swimmer, he can reach out to his social media following, he can go to his friends, he can go to family, and he can go to his connections and can raise a lot of money. If you've got loads of different swimmers And if you add that on top of what the organization can do, you can raise a lot of money overall. If each individual swimmer can generate 1,000 and then the organization can generate about 20,000, then everyone's winning at the end of the day. This is how a good campaign page looks. It's all about having a really nice image, telling your story well, as Bill mentioned. And if you've got a good image that's representing what your product's about, so if you compare this to this, obviously this image is much better because it's a personal image of the person who's trying to raise money. So here's some tips. Set up a nice bright images with throughout the page, clear story of why you need funding, provide details to create a personal story. Share it with friends and family through social. So this is always use the nice images and share it throughout social. You can also call people you know to talk to them, send texts, emails, meet people face to face, spread the word through communities of online groups. So whatever you need to do to raise this money, it's all going to come from friends and family. So what you've got to do is actually reach out to your core group. You should be posting regular updates to thank people, to share updates of what you've been up to, what the athletes have been up to, what the individuals have been up to, and what that money is doing. It's going to really help you guys if people are sharing where the money is going to. So there's also a lot of places to get some additional free traffic. So you can still use Twitter. I know a lot of people think Twitter's dead, but there's a lot of traffic happening on Twitter, and you can tweet multiple times a day. If the social media channel is still there, a lot of people are forgetting Twitter, and a lot of people are just sticking to Facebook. Think of Facebook as more like a newsletter. People nowadays are just posting constantly on Facebook every day. Like the information is non-relevant. Because Facebook has lowered the reach, you should just treat it as a newsletter to share out the information you want. There's a lot of relevant groups on Facebook that you can help spread your message. So there's a lot of crowdfunding backer groups that you can join, and you can share your message once you go live. I like to end my talks with some really good tools to help anyone do anything. So this is a really good one. It's called Email Subject Grader, and it will test how good your subject lines are. You've also got this really good tool called spamcheck.glockapps.com, and this will check whether the email is landing in the main inbox. Because a lot of emails, the biggest problem a lot of companies have at the moment is that the emails are landing in the promotional tab in Gmail, or it's going to spam. So the way to reach more people is to make sure that everyone is getting an email. And you can use these tools to make sure you do that. You can also use verifyemails.org. So if you're looking to reach out to local press, this is a really good tool. You've also got a Chrome extension called Email Extractor, again helping you find PR emails. So before a campaign is launched, it's really good to do minimum numbers. So if you've got your swimmers or if you're doing the organizations, you should look at where your money is going to come from before you even think about sticking up a campaign page. See who are the sources, are these people guaranteed to give you some sort of money? And this is a really good way to make sure you succeed before you even launch your campaign. You should also go through your network and understand who their connections are. A lot of people have good connections to PR, bloggers, who can actually help your story go national. So a lot of campaigns have gone viral just because they knew a good editor at BuzzFeed or something like that. This is a really good tool called mizoai.com. It's a very simple way to set up a landing page or set up a website for swimmers or your organization. So you can actually drive people to it, and they can set up a landing page. So this is a really good group that I'm going to leave you guys with. It's called Crowdfunding Backers Tips, Tricks, and Traffic. and we post a lot of great content on here, how you can launch a campaign, how you can grow your campaign, and how you can get a lot of backers organically. So thank you very much.
Thank you for the tips, Mr. Patel. Now I invite Ms. Zhang to the podium to start her presentation.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me here to be speaking at FINA. And to be honest, I've been speaking at a lot of events and also at many international organizations. And this is the first time for me to speak for some swimming and aquatics related event. I guess just now Bill and Samit have already given you some very hands-on experience and suggestions on how to do fundraising. And from my part, I guess I would focus more on what to fundraise for and also whom you should fundraise from. Before that, please do stand with me for a couple of minutes. I will just give a very brief introduction on what IDG is. There are two reasons I would like to do this. First reason, this is a requirement from the organizer. And second reason, I have been asked so many times at various occasions that, hey, what kind of big data you are doing? And how would you do the data analysis? And today I would like to clarify here a little bit about our major business lines. So actually when we are talking about IDG, in general, we have 4 business lines. To be honest, we are the most well-known for investment. And second business line would be the media and publishing. And third one would be the market research. That is related to data. And the fourth one is actually related to expos and events. And these are our 4 major business lines. But however, we have also 2 major areas. First one is technology or internet-related technology. And the second one, especially after 2000, we started to have our layout in the sports industry. So that area is the sports, culture, and also tourism. For IDG, actually, it was established in 1964 in Boston. And right now, we have our presence in nearly about 150 countries. But when we are talking about IDG China, it has entered into the Chinese market in the 1980s. And I will just elaborate a little bit, yes, about each part. First, about the capital part. And actually, we were the first VC to enter into China. That was back then in the 1990s. I remember at that time when we were actually providing the funding to the companies, to the organizations, we were always being asked one question. Why would you like to do this? And actually, what do you want to ask for? Because at that time in China, for the concept of VC was actually never heard of before. And right now, we still keep actually our top positions in terms of investment in China. And we have about 200 billion fund. Half of them actually US currency, so we can do also investments overseas. I can elaborate a little bit later on within the sports fields overseas. And also, right now in China, we have invested in about 800 companies. And 180 companies have exited by IPO or merger and acquisition. And globally, when we are looking at the projects, we have actually this database or this pool from actually over 150 countries, but also within China, we have our portfolio actually within over 40 cities in China, with also the 5 major cities like Beijing, Shanghai, Shenzhen, and etc. And when we are looking at our investment portfolio, sorry for the font, I want to squeeze them in one slide. Actually, I guess for the major 2 areas, people know actually about our investment in Baidu. That is the Chinese version of Google, and Tencent, and also Xiaomi. Nowadays, everybody knows about that. And most recently, it has also been listed as well. And in the sports field, we also have a lot of investment. I will elaborate that later on. And right now, actually, we have about 180 companies that have already exited, either actually listed in the US and European stock markets, or Hong Kong, or mainland China, or actually with very high yield by merger and acquisition. And that is about the first business line. Second business line is actually about these expos and events. We do organize actually over 700 events and expos all over the whole world within 67 countries every year. And especially in China, still focusing on the two areas, technology and also sports. And this is actually related to data then. IDC is also one subsidiary of IDG, and we would like to maintain its neutrality and independence. So that's the reason why actually it is rather independent from all the rest of the business. And especially when giving the industry analysis of the companies, we do not want others to question us whether there would be some good coverage of our post-investment companies. And right now, actually, you can see the scale and numbers there. We have over 1,000 analysts in 100 countries. And in China, we also actually have about like 100 people. And last one is actually media and publishing. We were the first US publisher into China, but as this strict publicity policy and regulation in China, how we operate here is we establish the joint venture. So right now, actually, we have over 800 media all over the whole world, but within China, about 50 media, including also the sports field and also the high-tech fields. So that's a very brief introduction of what IDG is doing. But when talking about sports, I will just elaborate a little bit. So we actually first, for our investment business line, for sports fund, we have actually about 20 billion RMB. And right now, we have also already many investment projects. I can name some of you to you. For example, the most transaction was happening, I think, 1 or 2 months ago, and it was the French brand, Rossignol. But before that, we also have our investment in Infront, the Swiss company, and also the Lyon Football Club, and also like Montclair, many other brands as well. And in addition to this, we also have our sports incubator in China and also in Silicon Valley and other like countries and regions as well, mainly focusing also on sports or winter sports. But unfortunately now, not yet for swimming part, but I guess it's coming also very soon later on, especially in Guangzhou. And we also have our sports training centers. This is still actually in the construction and also in the process. This is about investment part. For expos in China here, we have two major national level expos. One is this World Winter Sports Expo. It is almost partly official program from IOC already in China. It's a commitment made by our Vice Prime Minister, Madame Liu Yandong, when we were bidding for the 2022 Winter Olympic Games. And another one is the China Sports Tourism Expo and Sports Culture like Expo. It's actually going to be held next week in Guangzhou. So if you happen actually to be still around, warmly welcome you to go to Guangzhou. And market research, every year we generate also the white paper on the winter sports and also the sports industry as well. Media and publishing, we have just established the Media Alliance for sports. So if anyone is interested from the media circle, we also warmly welcome. Okay, so that's actually part of for IDG. I hope this wouldn't be regarded as an advertisement. But for the second part, I would like to focus today, maybe unlike the other two speakers, is to talk more about the sports development and sports investment, and also some issues and also challenges swimming or the aquatic industry is facing, especially in China. A main reason is, personally, I'm actually originally from China, and also since we're based here, we have a lot of data that we would like to share with everyone. When talking about actually the investment in sports industry, in general, we would like to say that China right now, even though we are still at the beginning stage of the sports industry development, especially in terms of the event management and also others, but still, I think this is the right timing actually to have more investment and also to really dig deeper into this industry. Mainly because of the three reasons, or the three very positive support and feedback from the different stakeholders. The first one is related to the market. And we can actually see here, when we are looking at the potential of the Chinese sports industry, we notice that actually the amount or the portion of sports industry among the total GDP in China is rather low. So this is only about 0.7% compared to the average 2%. There is still a large potential to go. And the second one, we will always actually need the support from the government, either in terms of the funding or also the policies as well. And it is so favorable policy that was issued in the year 2014, and we always call it paper number 46. Very important paper, and it was forecasting that by the year 2025, the total sports industry would be like about 5 trillion RMB, and also a lot of very detailed policies supporting the development of sports industry. And the third one, also very important, from the industry. I have listed here, sorry for the Chinese text, I thought there would be also some Chinese audience here. Either from the leading companies in the industry. For example, like here, you could see the Ali Group, or Wanda, or Tencent, or actually from the capital part, the investors. There are various kinds of capital injection into this industry, although slowly, but still progressing actually very fast compared to the previous decades. So next is about the swimming industry. When talking about this, I think there are three challenges we're really facing, I guess not only in the Chinese market, but also globally. And that is related to what I would like to suggest, how actually, or what areas we should fundraise for, and whom we should fundraise. I would like to actually summarize the industry with three challenges. First is the digitalization. Probably that means sports plus internet. I think among all, swimming industry is really lagging behind. We have the apps for yoga now, we have the apps for marathon, but not that much or not that many for swimming. And the second one is related to the commercialization, especially in China. How we can really utilize, for example, our national heroes, swimming champions, and also their fans, and how actually to organize various events to really boost the development of the industry, and how we can promote actually the swimming or aquatics, this kind of sports among the normal people. This is something that actually we're facing a lot of challenges. And internationalization, definitely international cooperation is needed nowadays everywhere. So based on this, the last part would be some suggestions. I will quickly go through actually two cases. These are two of our investments. Our actually main suggestion when talking about what to fundraise for, I guess as investors, we always care about what we do invest actually in. So that is much worthwhile investing. As I mentioned, for this kind of online, like yes, online digital courses or apps development, even for international organizations, I guess you have two responsibilities. One is the nonprofit part, to promote the sports, and the other one may be slightly commercially because we need to survive. So this is actually one area you can dig into. Second is the commercialization. It's hard to imagine in China a few years ago when our actually champions, or even not champions, like Madam like yes, Fu and also Sun Yang, all of a sudden with so many fans, and this would be categorized as sports plus entertainment, and it will also help fundraise a lot as well. And third one is internationalization. I can actually give you one example, what IDG is doing with one international organization. It's not easy to actually disclose the name right now, but we're going to invest in this international organization for one winter sports promotion event in China. So if you grasp the opportunity, knowing what is the right thing actually to invest, then that would be actually also very crucial. Here are actually two examples. I see actually the time is blinking. Just to show you actually, for example, for the Lyon Football Club and also the Wisdom Sports, this is actually for marathon, yes. One thing related to marathon, I would like to, excuse me for one more minute, yes. For marathon, it's hard to imagine in China how fast it is developing. Within 1 year, it can actually, we can see here, within 5 years, it has been increased for 15 times in China. One of my friends, actually, she told me, if she would like to have the marathon running in Beijing, she had to have a lottery draw, or otherwise she need to fly out to other cities. So very good potential in this market. But when talking about swimming, it's more than that, or aquatics. Because for marathon, it's hard to sell tickets. But for swimming, we have actually the games, but meanwhile, we can also have the revenue from the tickets. So here are actually these two cases. And I will be also around here for some time. And if you have any questions, yes, I would also love to discuss with you later on as well. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Zhang.